you guys like try to balance your hormones, this is what you have to do, okay? Are you listening? You have to give me food.
That won't work. Obviously just looking for views, Lily. So it is lunchtime on this hormonally balancing day. And I grabbed a few heads of romaine lettuce, fairly small ones. And then I have this beautiful chili that I made 2 nights ago actually, so it needed to be eaten. It has lentils and black beans in it. It has rainbow chard, carrots, onions, and lots of spicy goodness. And then on top, I have my pesto, vegan oil-free pesto, that is one of my favorite recipes of all time. I think it was the first recipe video that Levi and I ever made together. And the base that I use is peas and shelled edamame. So lots and lots of fiber and nutrient-packed whole plant foods in this bowl. It took me about 2 minutes to put it together. That, my dears, is the beauty of leftovers. And then the chili and the pesto is just gonna serve as my salad dressing. Next don't is all about supplements and drugs. So let's talk about drugs that are hormones. There are some that we can't avoid, like if we're type 1 diabetic and we have to take insulin. People who take thyroid hormones, generally speaking, cannot stop without at least a weaning process and a lot of oversight from their doctor. But one hormone drug that a lot of us can stop taking is the oral contraceptive pill. Birth control in general is a complicated subject, so we won't really get into it here, but if you're ingesting synthetic hormones, your own hormones are not going to be able to balance themselves appropriately. Another common source of hormones for a lot of people in the natural health movement are compounded hormones from, like, your naturopath. There's a lot of research that calls the efficacy of these types of hormones into question, but the primary point that I want to talk about right now is that if you are adding hormones to your body will not be able to find a state of natural equilibrium. Also remember that the more sex hormones that are in your body, the higher your risk of hormonally sensitive cancer. That's true of synthetic hormones, that's true of natural hormones. For people who have imbalanced hormone levels, a lot of the time doctors or naturopaths will recommend a lot of different supplements for these people to take. Oftentimes these are isolated nutrient supplements, and these supplements can really throw our bodies out of whack. A lot of people with hormonal issues are recommended other supplements that are stimulating, and or they include things like caffeine in their diet. So as I feel like I've said many times at this point, caffeine can be really good for us, but it can also stimulate the release of the stress hormone cortisol, and it can affect insulin's ability to be effective. So if we're having hormonal problems, especially if we know that we're having issues with stress hormones and or insulin, it can be a good idea to abstain from caffeine for a while. What you can consider a do for naturally healthy hormones is to potentially use herbal supplements or alternative treatment modalities. So when I was really working on getting my hormones balanced naturally, I went to go see an acupuncturist regularly. She was also able to put me on some traditional Chinese medicine herbal formulas. I like the traditional Chinese medicine formulas because they've been around for thousands of years, they're tried, true, tested, and I found those types of supplements to be really helpful. What I didn't find to be helpful, and what I don't think is a good idea, is randomly self-selecting herbs, or even necessarily going to herbalists and allowing them to pick and choose and mix their own formulations. Herbs are very potent plants, and they can have some really significant effects on the body. And if we just play with that willy-nilly, we can end up having some pretty significant problems and unintended consequences. So I enjoyed taking the traditional Chinese medicine herbs, and I did that when I was really out of whack and when I needed to kind of bring in the edges of my hormone fluctuations. Once I felt like I was in a good spot, I stopped taking the supplements and my body continued down the route towards finding its own balance. So nowadays, I don't take any herbal supplements because I don't need them. The other thing that you can try are stuff like superfood supplements. Maca powder is what comes to my mind initially, as it's one of those superfoods that actually does have some semi-decent studies to back up its efficacy for being able to balance our hormones. I've tried maca powder on and off. I never found it to be particularly effective or useful, and so I just kind of decided that it was not a way I wanted to spend my money. But I also know that some other people swear by it. So if that's something that you want to give a try, feel free to do so. It seems to be fairly innocuous. Okay, so that will do it for that do. I will see you guys for dinner. Dinner is served. Okay, I made a big green salad with romaine lettuce, and then I have my sauteed bok choy on top. That looks like a pine needle. Weird. It's a pretty darn yummy sauce. No added oils, so super low in AGEs. Then I have a curry that I made last night. I just used a vindaloo curry powder that I buy from my local health food store. Added a little bit of extra cumin and a little garlic powder to that. Boiled up all the veggies in the curry and with water, and I cook my curry with green split peas as well, and that helps to like thicken up the sauce and make it really satisfying without adding coconut milk or coconut cream. And then after it was done cooking in the Instant Pot, I added in some cubed tofu and rainbow chard. And then I just have a russet potato hiding over there. And I was really tempted to go back for thirds last night on the curry, so I might go back for seconds tonight. I can't make any guarantees. And then that will do it for my day of eating for naturally balanced hormones. Lots of whole plant foods, lots of phytoestrogens, lots of really nutrient-dense foods like greens and veggies, really low AGE foods, no added oil, no high-fat or high-protein foods exposed to a lot of heat, especially dry heat, and tons of antioxidants. So that will do it for dinner. Which brings us to our final don't for naturally balanced hormones. You might be saying, what's going on, Lily? You obviously filmed this earlier in the day. To which I say, yeah, I did, because I knew that if I tried to film this segment later tonight, it would stress me out. And stress is the last don't. So I feel like society right now is kind of like a perfect storm for just stressing us out to the point that we can barely function. There's so much pressure on us to be everything and do everything. And for a lot of us, there's just like an economic pressure to be able to survive. I see that and it's real. And the truth is that there's a certain amount of stress that we just can't avoid. How'd the trash can get there? I'm moving there. Like getting the trash can out of the frame. That brings my stress level down. You know, first of all, let's just ask a question about social media. Even YouTube right now. Is this helpful? Are you comparing your life to mine? I know when I watch other people's videos, it's like I can't help but comparing myself to them, and then I feel inadequate. And I feel like I'm not doing enough. And I just get frantically stressed out, and it's just not helpful. And I've had to be really honest that maybe even though social media is like my job, maybe it's not good for me. One really common form of stress that we inflict on ourselves, which I totally understand, because when we start to have hormone issues, a lot of times weight gain is involved in that. And what are we supposed to do when we gain weight? We're told we're supposed to exercise and go on diets. And caloric restriction is a stress. It strains the body, it lowers your thyroid hormones, it messes you up. And exercising when you're exhausted or over-exercising, it makes it so much worse. It drives you into a pit of exhaustion. And this is where giving advice starts to get kind of squirrely, because so much of what we feel stressed out over, we feel like can't change. We feel like it's non-negotiable, even though, honestly, it truly is. We gotta make a living, gotta take care of our families. But I'm gonna be perfectly honest when I say that when I got real, there was a lot that I could take off my plate that didn't need to be there. And my stress levels went way down. Yeah, I have fewer relationships, I have fewer commitments, I have fewer people in my life, I have fewer aspirations, but it feels really good. And I don't want to go back to the other way of living. It's just not nice. And so instead of participating in stress, what should we do? First of all, rest. Let your body rest and recuperate. Do your best not to overstretch and overextend yourself. It doesn't make you selfish for taking care of you and not being exhausted and miserable. Arrange your life and your commitments so that you can get at least 7, 8, 9 hours of sleep a night. That should be something that's non-negotiable. Free time and downtime, just, unstructured time to enjoy yourself, should also be something that's non-negotiable, because it's so vital to our well-being and our capacity to enjoy being alive. And that's so important because our mindset deeply affects hormone levels. If you're stressed out and miserable and dreading life, don't think for a second that that's not going to be reflected in the way your hormone levels manifest. There was a while when I had everything right. My diet, I was sleeping, I was avoiding hormonally disruptive chemicals like a boss, and yet my hormones still wouldn't come into balance. And I had to address my mindset, the way I was thinking, the anger and the irritation that I was feeling. I had to be really purposeful about changing my focus and changing my perspective. And it was also really important to get into the feelings and the beliefs that I developed when I was a developing young girl, right? When I was 11, 12, 13, and I started to, become a woman, it didn't feel safe. I had a creepy stepdad, and I had a creepy 6th grade teacher, and my hormones changing felt like it was attracting attention that wasn't safe. And for 1 in 4 girls in this country, the United States, it's not safe. And the stats are 1 in 6 for boys, so it's not like they're immune. But the bottom line is that if it doesn't feel safe to be a woman, if it's something that we dread, if it's something we're ashamed of, then why would our bodies cooperate? Why would they let that happen? And getting in touch with a lot of those feelings that I had around that age and older, a lot of the feelings that I had about being female and feminine and what that meant and how it was interpreted and how I was treated in the world, was a really important part, in my opinion, of coming into hormonal balance. Another big do is to make time to take care of yourself and allow yourself to let go of stress, because it accumulates throughout the day. And a lot of times we get to the end of our days and we're just ramped and we're pumped up and yet exhausted at the same time, because our sympathetic nervous systems are just on overdrive. And a lot of times that doesn't get turned off and we end up sleeping but not getting restful sleep, or depending on things like sleeping aids to help us get the sleep that we so desperately need. And so one of the most important practices I feel that I took on as part of balancing my hormones was doing something like restorative yoga before bed. I also took a lot of restorative yoga classes, which are just like the best thing in the world, because it's like creative napping and it's just such a soothing practice. So generally I don't go to classes too often anymore, but what I make a point of doing is taking at least 10, 15, 20 minutes before I go to sleep, and I'll get myself into a comfortable position the lighting is dim, maybe I'll turn on my essential oil diffuser, I'll play some nervous system soothing type music, and I just really purposefully focus on letting my body melt and relax, because it's in that state of relaxation and receptivity that our bodies heal and find their balance. And we absolutely, positively can't get around giving them that. So I hear the excuses. I don't have time. I have kids. It's too much to ask. But if 20 minutes is too much to ask, honey, that is not acceptable. You can't live that way. And if your kids can't understand that mommy needs to be taken care of too, and she needs to take care of herself, then that is something that they need to be taught, and they need to see you model taking care of yourself so that they can learn to take care of themselves too. So I understand that it's difficult, that it feels really daunting to think about reorganizing your life in these ways, but if you're experiencing significant hormonal upsets like you probably are if you're watching this video, it's not going to change. It's not going to change, and it's going to get worse the older that we get. There will be more severe symptoms. So you can either take care of it or not. But either way, there are going to be consequences. And I know personally, I would prefer that you make the hard choices now, and you disappoint people, and you move yourself away from trying to be superwoman for everybody. And I'd rather you take care of yourself, because the world is a better place when people take care of themselves. Because you are enough as you are. You don't have to be everything for everyone. You're enough right now as is, and you deserve to take care of yourself. You deserve to be taken care of. There's one person that's going to do that. It's you. Okay? All right, you guys, thank you so much for watching this video. I hope you get some really, really valuable takeaways from it, and use what you've learned to make better choices for yourself, because no one is going to do it for you. And take really, really good care. I will see you all so very soon. Bye.